So I'm going to play the meditation. Be very focused when it's being played, inshallah.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والشمس وضحاها والقمر إذا تلاها والنهار إذا جلاها والليل إذا يغشاها والسماء وما بناها والأرض وما طحاها ونفس وما سواها فألهمها فجورها وتقواها قد أفلح من زكاها وقد خاب من دساها كذبت ثمود بطغواها إذ انبعث أشقاها فقال لهم رسول الله ناقة الله وسقياها فكذبوه فعقروها فدمدم عليهم ربهم بذنبهم فسواها ولا يخاف عقباها.
Okay. Does anyone have any idea what this surah is about? The name is Surah Al-Shams. What do you think? What does Ash-Shams mean? Sun. Sun. Excellent. The sun. The surah talks about the sun a lot. You know, it uses the sun as the focal point to deliver a very strong message. But it's not just about the sun. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala always refers to something to draw our attention. He always brings something that we know. We know what the sun is. We see it every day. Well, not physically see it, but like we see its presence every day when the day comes out. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala always shows us something that we are aware of, and then through it, He points us or directs us to something that we do not know, or that's something that requires our attention. So through the mention of the sun and its attributes, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to draw a very strong parallel in this surah. So in the beginning, you might feel that I don't know where this is heading, but after about 7th ayah, you'll know where it was heading, inshallah ta'ala. Okay, so I'm going to share the word-to-word translation with you guys, and we will begin. نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي ربنا زدنا علما اللهم فقهنا في الدين آمين. The surah begins again with washamsi, by. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is swearing a qasam. You must have noticed that in Juz Amma, majority of the surahs that we are studying, there's a lot of oath taking happening. They're all beginning with qasam a lot. So this surah is also significant in this, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is swearing by the sun. Washamsi, by the sun. Waduhaha, and by its brightness. This waw that you see is the waw of atf and the waw of qasam. Through this waw of atf, this qasam in the beginning of waw is being carried out here. Okay? Ha is referring to shams. So by the sun and by its brightness, or by its early morning brightness. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes an oath, we know it's something important is coming. We've discussed that. But there's something more subtle here. When He takes an oath by one of His creations, like Shams is a creation of Allah. Sun is the creation of Allah. It is not a creator in itself. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes the oath by one of his creations, there is an implicit meaning, there's a hidden meaning in it. So it should be understood as by the Lord of the sun. Okay? He's not literally swearing by the sun, but the ulama has understood this as that by the Lord of the sun, waduhaha, and its brightness. Okay, and the brightness of the sun. Now, duha, we learned in Surah Ad-Duha. What kind of light is Ad-Duha? You guys tell me. What kind of light is duha? Is it a scorching heat, middle of the day, end of the day, or beginning part of the day? Good. It's a soothing light. It's the dawn. It's after Fajr. Okay, early part of the day. It's a soothing light of the day. Early part of the day. It's soft. It's gentle. Yes. So here, two qasams, two oaths have been taken by the sun and by its light. This glow, this duha, subhanallah, it is only attributed, it is exclusive to sun only. We cannot use this word, or in the language, this word is not used for any other kind of light source. I mean, we have different light sources. There's tube light, there's soft light, there's warm light. You know, subhanallah, there's torch, there's lamp, there's ceiling light, there's chandelier light, right? There's LED lights. Well, we cannot use the word duha for any of these because in the language, this duha refers to only the early part of the day. It's exclusive to the sun. Right? Then after taking the oath of these two things, then comes a third oath, wal qamari, and by the moon. Either when talaha, it follows it. What's happening here? And by the moon, when the moon, meaning it follows, tala, it follows, ha, it. Who is this ha referring to? The Shams. And by the moon, when the moon follows the sun. Do you understand? And by the moon, when it follows who? Follows the sun. The word tala that you see here, comes out of the root letters ta, lam, and waw. The same root letter, from the same root letter, we get the word tilawa, which means to recite, right? But here, the word tala yatlu, tilwun, has two elements to it, two meanings to it. There's a meaning of to read, and there's meaning to follow right behind something. When you are closely following someone, just like, for example, somebody's walking in front of you, and you're walking behind them step by step, that's tala. That's atilwu. Okay. So there's a phrase in the Arabic called atlatin naqa, which means a baby camel that follows his mother. Like just like, you know, when they're babies, what do? Wherever the mom is going, the baby is going. Especially when they become not a baby, when they're toddlers, right? The moment they start crawling, most of the time mothers complain that we can't even go to the washroom because he or she follows me there. Wherever I go, she's following. That's tala. Okay, following someone exactly behind them. Okay, and this following happens of two ways: physical and conceptual, tangible and intangible. Here, the qamar, the moon, physically follows the sun. Okay, especially when the moon becomes full. We know that moon goes through different stages. When the moon becomes full, it reflects light of the sun and draws light from it. So the moon is not just physically following the orbit of the sun, but what else it's doing? It needs the sun to illuminate it. It needs the sun for its own light. If you look at the first ayah, washamsi waduhaha, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala swears by the sun and by the, so two qasams have been taken in one ayah. But in the second ayah, only one qasam has been added, which is with the moon, not with its attribute. Because qamar, it shows that the qamar is subservient to the sun. Qamar has a subservient quality. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala swears by the moon because it follows the sun. Okay? All right. This was something of importance. And if you will notice in the Quran that whenever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the day and the night, you know, we will hear about the analogies and the parallels of the day and night a lot in the Quran. And every time It's brought with a different eye. Like you and I can say, yeah, day and night. I know what day and night happens. But in each time when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings it in the Quran, we get to learn a different aspect of day and night. And here we know that, and whenever, one thing we learn from the surah is whenever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about day and night, the day always comes first. He always mentions the day first. Then, one nahari, and by the day. One, and by the day, either when jallaha, it shows up or it exposes. What does that mean? And by the day, when it is lit up, it is exposed, it shows up. The word jallaha, jalla, this word that you see, jalla, comes out of the root letters jim, lam, and waw. Jalmun al jala. What does that mean? What does jala mean? It means to dissect something, to open something in such a way to separate it. Okay? Meaning to separate something into different parts, to its constituents. So this has been, the word jalla is often used for to explain something or to clarify something so that everything becomes very clear, right? So it has the meaning of clarity in it. All right. And we know when during the daylight, there's clarity of the day. The day is cleared, everything, you can see everything. Especially if you have struggle driving at nighttime. Like I hate driving at nighttime. So I prefer driving at daytime. Why? Because it's more clear and more evident, more apparent. I can see everything, inshallah, right? Something interesting is that in classical Arabic, this word jalla, from the same root, the word is tajal or tajalla. Tajalla is used to describe when a wife beautifies herself for her husband. Because when she does so, what does she do? She's exposing her beauty that was covered up. So this action is called tajalla. All right. Isn't that amazing? So, so the word jalla has what two meanings that we learned? Jalla has the meaning of clarity and openness. All right. Then it also means to give brilliance to something that is already brilliant. Okay. To give, for example, if you have a lamp, what is the quality of the lamp? That it will shine, right? If you turn it on, it will shine. So it has the potential, just like the wife has the potential to be beautiful, but she covers herself up when she goes outside, but she exposes that beauty in the home, right? So that's the jalla. Similarly, if I cover the lamp, because it had the element of light in it, it's covered, I cannot see it. So when I remove the covering of the lamp, that's the jalla. I did not give the lamp the ability to light up. The ability was there, the brilliance was there, but exposing it, now it becomes more clear. Okay, so that's jalla. So I just want you to really truly understand this, because the day has the beauty in it, but the shams brightens it up. Shams gives it brilliance. So there's two ways understood, that it is the shams that gives brilliance to the day, or it's the day that gives brilliance or gives chance to the shams to truly shine. Okay. Now, one layli, then by the night, either when yaghshaha, it conceals it. From yaghsha, yaghshi, we have learned this before. And by the night, as it conceals it. What is the night? What is the night concealing? This ha is referring to shams. All of these has here are going back to shams. Okay. Walaylin, by the night, when it conceals the sun, its brightness, its brilliance, all of that. Because as the night sets in, what happens? The brightness of the day becomes concealed. Interestingly, the word ghashia in Arabic is used for a membrane that covers the heart, just a covering. So the word ghashia has the root meaning of covering and concealing, because when you cover something, it's hidden now, right? Similarly, in Urdu, we also say the word ghashi. You know, ghashi tari ho jana. Similarly, in Arabic, it's called ghushiya alayh. Ghushiya alayh. What does that mean? It's a state of a person when they lose their senses and they completely faint. Okay, so why is this word used for that? Because a person's senses become completely hidden or they're senseless now. So all of the oaths that we are seeing here, they're centered around the sun. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَالسَّمَاءِ, and by the heavens, by the skies, وَمَا, and what, banaha, built it. Now, if you notice something, here you see in the translation, and who built it. But ma does not mean who. Ma means what. And in last class, we discussed that the word ma in Arabic is very versatile. It is used in many different ways. So you will see variation in its translation. And how will you know how to translate it? Inshallah, through the tafsir, we will learn, because these are grammatical inflections, grammatical points to it. وَمَا بَنَاهَا is such a powerful statement. And what built it, not who built it. Usually in translations, who is added for the ease of the people. But I want to explain to you, there's lots going on here. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala swears by the sky. And what made it? What made the sky? We expect it to be man. Who? It could be was-sama'i wa man banaha, and who built it? It would make more sense, let's say, from the language perspective. But instead, ma is used. Ma here, ulama has said, has been used in two ways, ma al-mawsula and ma al-masdariya. What is al-ma al-mawsula? It is a question of what that thing is, meaning what is that thing? What is that power that built the sky? Not who is the one that built it, but what is that power that created this gorgeous, beautiful sky? Ma al-Masturiya, if it's translated as Ma al-Masturiya, it is a sign of astonishment at the creation. It would be translated as, and how he built it. And by the heaven, and how he built it. So there's a difference here. Majority opinion, according to the grammar and according to the language, is that it is ma al-mawsula, which means and what built it. There's a difference between who and what. When we don't know someone, we say, who is he? Then you say, oh, he's a doctor. You know, he did this. You give an explanation. But let's say the surgery gets very successful. It is a surgery that nobody could have done it, and he does it. And what do you say? What a miracle worker he is. What a doctor. Do you understand the difference? So by adding ma, there's huge amazement added. It's not even the question about who built it, because that's known Allah, but what power is Allah? What power he possesses that he built a sama. When we ask who created the sky, we know the answer is Allah, right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is asking the man to look at the sky and exhaust his imagination. So it is an invitation for us to look at the sky and exhaust our imagination to think about what kind of power Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is. The word banaha, banaha, he built it. Bana comes from bina. The word bina is to put something together in such a way that it gets fused and becomes inseparable, meaning joining something put together so well that it is not going to separate anymore. There's not going to be any crack. There's not going to be any gap in it, right? So for the word sama, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala explains it that it's not just like built, it's built in such perfection, there is no gap in it. There is no crack in it. Nothing in the sky needs further fixing. A flawless sky by a flawless creator with no cracks and no gaps. And another thing we learned from the usage of the word bina is that sky was created, it was constructed, and it was not always there. For example, some people believe that the sky always existed. No, it didn't. It was created, it's a creation of Allah. Just like Shams is a creation of Allah, Qamar is a creation of Allah, As-sama is also a creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Similarly, some people said the earth always existed. No, it's a creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Wal ardi, and by the earth. Wama, and what spread it, or who spread it, or how he spread it. Subhanallah. And by the earth, and by the one who spread it, or how we spread it, or what power caused the earth to spread. Now here, if again ma of Mawsula is been used, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is swearing by the earth and what kind of power it must be that spread it and gave it its vastness. And if ma is masdariya, then it is an exclamation of how incredible the earth's creation and vastness is. So they both translations complement each other. Okay. Taha, the word taha here that you see, he spread it. It's interesting. It's a very interesting word. It means to lay down, to spread something. In classical Arabic, in old Arabic, Arabs would go, whenever they would go to a castle or a big house or a huge building, that it's so large that you cannot see where it ends. You know, imagine a big palace, right? You enter in it, but you don't know where it ends. Wherever you see, you just see the palace. You just see the big, giant landscape. So whenever they would enter a place like that, they would say that the house is mutahiyya, which means well spread out. And if you stand in one corner of the earth, can you see the end of the earth from your naked eye? Even if you take the telescope and stand on one corner of the earth, from your telescope, can you see the end of the earth, how vast it is? We have the capture of the round of the earth, how? Through satellites. So the vastness of the earth has been mentioned. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses the same root of mutahiyya to describe the earth's vastness, its capacity. What is the function of these oaths? I told you until ayah 7, we'll get to the crux of these oaths in ayah number 7. But let's review from 1 to 6. What's happening here? Are you noticing a pattern? Are you noticing a rhythm here? Shams, opposite is Qamar. One is bright, one comes at night. Or one is the one that follows it. One leads, Shams leads, Qamar follows it. Nahar is the day that makes things evident. Night, the opposite of the day, conceals the things. It hides the things. So the day exposes things. The night, which is the opposite of the day, conceals it. As-sama, heavens, opposite of earth. As-sama is up above. Earth is on the ground, like down below. Sama is constructed, like a building is constructed, raised high. The ha, opposite, it is spread out on the ground. Opposites are happening. Conflicts are happening. All of those things are working in opposite direction of each other. Do you see that? Sun is in conflict with the moon. Day is in conflict with the night. But both sun and Qamar, and the day and the night, despite being in the conflict, they form part of a larger picture. Okay? They form a huge larger picture of functioning in harmony. These opposites have been given rules and a system, and they follow it and they cannot break it. There's a time for night and a time for early morning, and that order will never be broken. Does it ever happen that the night comes before the day? No, the day comes and then the night comes. This is the perfect harmony and balance between things that are in constant conflict. So the base of these things is conflict, but the working of these things are in balance and in harmony. Imagine if this balance disappeared and the sun and the moon rebelled. The sun says, why must I always lead? Why, Qamar, you can't do your own thing? Why must you take my light? Leave me be. And then Qamar says, why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make me such a way that I always have to follow the Shams? Why must I come after Shams? Today I will go before Shams. What if all of this started happening? When water exceeds its limits in the ocean, it causes flooding. If the Shams and the Qamar and the Nahar and the Layl and the Sama and Al-Ard exceed their limits, what will happen? Chaos will happen. But it doesn't happen. Why? Because they are bound by the rotation, by the system, by the by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to function in a way despite their differences, despite their conflicts. In this surah, we learn that such conflicts and balance are also within the human being. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala balanced and perfected and gave limits and discipline to each and every different human being. When we reflect on harmony between these opposite entities, it should make us wonder, what kind of power must it be that made such an enormous creation like the sun and the moon and gave them harmony despite being such opposites? If we have to make two people who are opposites of each other and reconcile between them and say, hey, set your differences apart, let's just work together for the common cause, chaos, we cannot do it. And these are people with limited power. And here are these mighty creations of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala working in harmony because it is the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now comes the crux of these 6 verses in verses number 7, 8, and until 10. Wa nafsin, and by the soul. Wama, and what sawaha, perfected it, formed it. You know, some ayats in Quran are like seeds. The ideas get planted, and then later on another ayah comes that blooms into a flower from the seed that you planted before. The ayah number 1 to 6 are Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala planting seeds of this idea of conflict. And then from ayah number 7 onwards, we see the blooming of these ayat. We understand, oh, this is what he's trying to tell us. The main crux is wa nafsin, and the nafs. What is the nafs? What is the nafs? Nafs is usually translated as soul or consciousness. It's a limited translation. But nafs is oneself and one's soul. Ruh, it's part of nafs. Okay? Sawa, this word sawaha, sawa is from taswiya, and it is to take something that is uneven and organize and balance it in such a way that it evens out. Meaning originally this was not even, but then you balance it out afterwards. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala balanced the nafs. Why is there a need to balance the nafs? That means the nafs has something happening inside. There are 2 opposing things in the nafs. The nafs is composed of physical, tangible, and intangible. The tangible aspect of nafs is our jism, our body, physical aspects. And the intangible form of nafs is ruh. Nafs is comparable with the body in the same way that the sun is comparable to its glow. Sun is something physical, like the human body, but its glow is intangible, like the ruh, not nafs. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us, He created us with clay, right? We know that part. But something else happened at the time of creation. He blew in our creation the ruh. So we are created from an organic matter of the earth. Clay is the organic matter of the earth. That's one part of us. And then there is another thing inside us, which is the ruh, which is from the command of Allah, which is from the hukm of Allah. So one aspect of us desires the earthly desires, and one aspect of us, which is the ruh, looks for the spiritual guidance up above. physical body has desires, requirements, right? You need food, you need to sleep, you need to rest, you need to walk, you need to exercise. There's tons of things that your physical body needs. Our spiritual body, which is our nafs, ruh, also has desires, also has requirements. Just like the body feels hunger, right? The ruh gets hungry. Difference is between the two that the nourishment of the body comes from where? The earth. And the nourishment of the soul comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, from His book. Spiritual hunger is only satiated by the word of Allah. And the spiritual hunger is manifested in the physical form by depression, anxiety, restlessness, don't know what to do, don't know where to go, lost, chaos, upheaval. So there are two components that make us up, which is jism and ruh, and both of these are in conflict with each other, just like the rest of the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The body and the soul have their own separate needs, as we discussed. And the thing is, their needs are in such a way that they pull the human in opposite directions. So the body is going to left, the ruh is pulling it to the right. This imbalance, if there is no balance between the jism and ruh, the needs of jism and ruh, if there's no balance in there, what happens? You know, if you feed or overfeed one aspect, I mean, if you overfeed your jism with the desires and you neglect or you starve the ruh, chaos will happen in your life. Your life will be not at peace. You will be restless, right? So we need to understand that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made it of two different components, and we need to give justice to both. We need to give justice to both. What are the concerns of the physical part of us? We have the desire to beautify it. We have the desire to eat yummy foods. We have the desire to have pleasures, right? These are our concerns of the body needs. We know all what our body needs. Do we know what our ruh needs? Are we starving our ruh? Listen, when we say that we have to fulfill the obligation towards both, we have a huge imbalance. We have focused mostly on the fulfillment of the needs of the physical aspect, which is jism. I feel like doing this, my heart desires this, I'm going to go ahead and do this. But the desires of the ruh are always neglected. So we also, the deen has stopped us to go into other extreme. For example, in Catholicism, there's monasticism, which means that you cannot marry, right? But Islam doesn't stop you from marriage. Islam doesn't stop you from filling your desire, which is the physical desire. It doesn't stop you. It says you can fulfill your physical desires by getting married, right? So Islam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants the jism, the body, to be subservient to the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, just like the shams and the qamar and everything else around is subservient to it. Okay? I hope this makes sense. So there's this constant battle. Like while we have the obligation to a ruh, we should not forget our portion from this life. There's this constant battle of good and bad in us. But we have to channel our body's desires in a permissible way, meaning anybody can come, hey, but it's natural desire. Men are gonna like women, women like men. Come on, that's natural. Are you telling us to stop? No. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put that desire in you, but then He opened the door of nikah for you instead of zina. So you could fulfill that desire by crushing your soul, by crushing your ruh, and commit zina. But if you go into nikah, now you have put your jism and ruh in a perfect harmony. Do you understand what I'm trying to say here? So these two are in constant conflict to win over the heart. Okay? There's constant battle going on for our heart, in our heart, to win over. Who's going to have authority over the heart? Is the jism going to lead the heart or the ruh going to lead the heart? So constant battle of nafs. So which is why the nafs actually goes through 3 different stages. All of us go through 3 different stages in the nafs. The first stage is called nafsul ammara bisu. What is that? It is a nafs that sins. It's the nafs that commands to do evil. The nafs is constantly being pulled. We go outside, we see something pretty, we want it. We go outside, we see some delicious food that we can't eat, we want it. Like through the sight, through the hearing, how do we develop desires, by the way? We look at them. We immerse ourselves in the places of desires. That's how you develop desires, isn't it? For example, if somebody who doesn't have a lot of exposure, if somebody lives in a very far away area where there's no TV, where there is no exposure to social media, their desires will be limited, wouldn't they be? The desires are limited based on the areas you live in. But when you are living in the city, in the hustle and the bustle, right, the glamour of the world, your desires will increase because you are exposing yourself to those desires, right? So the nafs is constantly being pulled towards the desires of the body. And it is these very desires that are the hardest to avoid because we're constantly being bombarded. Day in, day out, you open your social media, boom, new things pop up. Now you want this, now you want that, right? So sometimes in fulfillment of the desires, we stay so far away in this direction, right? That we feel bad. The nafs is hungry, the ruh is still hungry. And we, let's say, commit a sin because a nafsul amara has taken control of your heart and now you've committed the sin. Maybe you committed zina, maybe you lied, maybe you cheated, maybe you did something. You did not pray fajr because your nafsul amara was telling you to sleep in the bed. The bed was too cozy, too warm, you could not get up. Nafsul amara took over you, right? But when you wake up, now you're feeling guilty. Where's that guilt coming from? This is the second stage of the nafs, which is called nafsul lawama, the self-blaming nafs, the self-blaming soul. This is the nafs that puts the gut feeling in our hearts that I've done something wrong. This nafs causes us to do tawbah. So that is the second stage of our life where we're like, oh man, I did something wrong. I should not have gone there. I should not have said that. I should not have hurt her, or I should not have skipped my prayer. I should not have, like, what was the point of me, giving up the command of Allah for a little pleasure? We all go through this stage. This is the stage of nafsul lawama. This stage, if you can be strong in your tawbah, it leads you to the third stage, which is nafsul mutmainnah, the tranquil soul, the satisfied soul. And if you know Surah Al-Fajr, if anybody has read Surah Al-Fajr, the ending part of the surah says, Ya ayyatuha nafsul mutmainnah, irji'i ila rabbika radiyatan mardiyah, fadkhuli fi ibadi. This part of the surah talks about in Surah Al-Fajr that when the angels will come to take the soul of a nafsul mutmainnah, someone who overcame the desires, someone who beat nafsul amara and nafsul lawama and reached the state of nafsul mutmainnah. When you get to that stage, how do you get to that stage? When you crush the desires that pull you away from the needs of your ruh. And the need of the ruh is, when does your soul become truly happy? When it is in the obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The soul will be restless if it is disobedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Apparently, people might see you in a lot of physical difficulty, but spiritually and mentally and emotionally, you are up high and above. You're happy. Because the worldly difficulties don't matter to you because you have reached the stage of nafsul mutmainnah. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala further explains the nafs. Fa, ayah number 8. Fa, then, alhama, he inspired. Who inspired? Allah. Okay, Allah inspired who? Ha, it, the nafs. Then he inspired it, or he inspired the nafs. What did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tell the nafs? What did he inspire him about? Fujuraha, its rebellion, its impurity. Rebellion is a better translation for fujur than impurity. Its rebellion, wa taqwaha, and its purity. What does that mean? What does this ayah mean? Let's look at the words. فَأَلْهَمَهَا, this word alhama comes from ilham. What is ilham? When there's something in your heart that you feel most certain about, that it's a fact. In English, we can call it a gut feeling that I was talking about, right? Your nafsul lawama is the one giving you the gut feeling. So ilham, the nafs has this ilham, the nafs has inspiration. When you do something wrong, something clicks in you. That's ilham, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has inspired or showed the nafs that when it's doing something wrong. Fujuraha, fujur, the word fujur comes from fajr, Salatul Fajr. Why Salatul Fajr called Salatul Fajr? Because Fajr is a time when the morning light tears through the darkness. So Fajr has the base meaning of tearing, shredding something apart, okay? Tearing through something. A Fajr is someone who is extremely rebellious and tears through the sanctities of Allah's boundaries. And he does not fear any consequences. He just keeps doing whatever he wants to do. He does not care about what Allah's commands are. He's just living his life the best way. That's a fajr. He's rebellious person against Allah. When we disobey Allah, this is an act of rebellion. We have to understand that. Any act of disobedience towards Allah is the act of rebellion. Hopefully, because if our nafsul lawama is active, we seek tawbah, we go back and forth in that state. But if you continue to stay in the state of fujur, if we continue to keep doing the bad deeds without tawbah, we become a fajr. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has programmed the nafs like an alarm clock. Nafs has awareness and it can recognize the evil desire and inclination. Like when you want to do something bad, the nafs is like, dang it, I feel I'm about to do something wrong, or I feel like I've done something wrong already. The alarm triggers when nafs heads in the direction of evil and rebellion. It is the guilt. Alarm is that guilt that nafs feels. The guilty conscience, and this guilty conscience, subhanAllah, is present in Muslims and non-Muslims and everyone. Even a lot of non-Muslims have, when you talk about the, yeah, man, I was feeling really guilty. I don't know why I did that. They're not Muslims because everyone has nafs. This is universal concept, right? So when you constantly rebel against the commands of Allah, you make your nafsul amara, the first stage of nafs, strong. And your nafsul amara takes control over your heart. And when it becomes too strong, the self-blaming nafs stage, nafsul lawama, you cannot access it. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala save us from reaching that stage. One example I would give is this, that sometimes we know the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? They're very clear. And in our heart, we know that what action I have to take, right? But what do? We start looking for fatwa shopping. Do you know what fatwa shopping is? You want someone to make something halal for you, which you know is haram. And you go to a scholar and he tells you it's haram, then you're not satisfied because your nafsul amara wants to do something bad. So you need a stamp of approval. So you keep going to different places. There's a maxim, there's a rule in Islam, which ulama has derived. It is called at-taqwa qabla al-fatwa. Taqwa before fatwa. Meaning have taqwa before you try to find a fatwa. Your ultimate goal should be that I don't want to displease Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That should be the purpose of you seeking a fatwa or a counsel from a scholar, not to satisfy the desire that you want to do and get the approval of a scholar that, oh, fine, now I can do this. So sometimes we really need to listen to that gut feeling, right? Now, not just the awareness of this rebellion that the nafs has another ability. It has the ability to protect itself. And how do we know? وَتَقْوَاهَا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has inspired the nafs to recognize, has given it ability to gain taqwa and protect itself from the fujur. So the nafs can identify the beauty in taqwa, and it can also identify the ugliness in fujur. According to a hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in Sahih Muslim, He says, righteousness is in good character, and wrongdoing is that which wavers in your heart, which makes your heart uncomfortable. What is a wrong action? What is a sin? In other words, what is a sin? Anything that makes your heart uncomfortable. And then he continues, and which you dislike people finding out about. If you're doing something and you don't want some people to know, that's a sin. Subhanallah, simple example, simple way of explaining. What is a good action? Righteousness is in good character. If you have good character, you're on the right path. But what is a wrong action? What is a wrongdoing? What is the path of a fajr? That when you do something, something wavers in your heart. Your heart is not settled. It feels a little bit of uneasiness. If it feels uneasiness, stop. That's the alarm sound. Do not put it on snooze. Wake up. That's a wake up call. People often make excuses to justify their actions. I mean, we always make excuses to justify our actions, right? Or the things we want to do. And when we do something bad, or let's say, I don't want to say something bad, let's say there's a clear command of Allah that I'm not following, okay? Think of something in your life that you're not doing, that you're supposed to be doing, all right? All of us have something. I'm thinking of something that I am supposed to be doing, but I'm not doing, right? I know that I have to do. What do we do sometimes? We make ourselves satisfied by saying, well, there are people who are doing far worse things than me. There are people who are committing murder. There are people who are committing this and that. And one example that really I see a lot is that a lot of people, when they wear hijab, uh, and people who don't wear hijab, there's always like animosity between them for some reason. And hijab is a journey, it's a journey that in the beginning, when you start, it's probably not following all the rules of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And slowly you improve on it. And hijab is like a one command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? It's one of the commands. It's not all the command. So just because somebody's wearing hijab doesn't mean that they're going to be 100% in everything else. But people generally who don't wear hijab, I'm just giving this as an example. I'm not throwing shade at anyone, because this example happens in front of me a lot of times. They would say, well, at least I'm not like one of those hijabis who who do tabarruj or who have no haya. At least my heart is clean, not like that sort of hijabi. What is the point of wearing a hijab when your heart is not clean? One action doesn't negate the other, right? So the reason I gave this example is that we justify our wrongdoing, our wrong action, by comparing ourselves to somebody else who is bad in something else. People are always going to be sinning in something. You will always find something in someone that they're not doing, just like there's plenty of things that I'm not doing. And I'm struggling with my nafsul annara, nafsul lawama, right? I'm struggling with that, just like everyone has their own struggle. But we should not be making someone else's flaw an excuse for us, or a step or a fatwa for us to not do that action. Okay? Imagine a dam with a crack in it, right? If there's a crack in a dam, what happens? The water will seep through it, right? And the water will keep hitting that crack so much that the crack will widen in it. As the crack will widen, more water will go through it. Eventually, what happens? The foundation of the dam will shake, the dam will break, and the water will flood out. Our conscious, nafsul lawama, is that guilt that's stopping it. The crack is the sin that we commit. But if we don't repent and don't fill that gap by doing tawbah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the gush, the flood of desires will overpower us, and our foundation will break. Our nafsul amara will take over, and nafsul mutma'inna will get lost. This is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, to enter the fold of Islam completely, there is no halfway. There is no pick and choose. In Surah Al-Baqarah, ayah number 208, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "Oh, you have believed, ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, enter into Islam completely and do not follow the footsteps of shaitan. Indeed, he is to you a clear enemy." And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala further says in Surah Al-Isra, ayah number 7, If you do good, meaning if you're doing good, you're not doing ihsan on Allah. If you do good, you do good for yourselves, for your nafs. And if you do evil, if you do bad, again, you're not depriving Allah of anything. You do it to yourselves. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us complete understanding of the two paths, the path of fujur and the path of taqwa. The inner clocks have been installed in our nafs. فَأَلْهَمَهَا فُجُورَهَا وَتَقْوَاهَا. Ayah number 8 is telling us that Allah has done His part of installing these clocks of right and wrong in us. We cannot blame the nafs at all. We have been given control and the charge and the direction of it. If we are falling weak of our nafs, it's because we are on the path of fujur. If I'm finding the commands of Allah difficult, my heart is closed off because there's too much gunk of fujur. There's too much rebellion on me. Somebody asked me a question in a private message from the last surah. And I thought when I was studying this surah, I thought that the best place to answer that question would be here. The question was, Alam nashrah laka sadrak. Did we not open your chest for you? And we did this tafsir that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala opened up the chest of Rasulullah to receive the commands. The commands of Allah became easy on him. When do commands of Allah become easy on us? When you have a nafsul mutma'inna, a tranquil soul that is radi, that is happy with the decisions of Allah. A soul that doesn't rebel too much against Allah. Then things become easy, right? And if I'm finding, so what, and then the question was that how do I get a sadr? How do I get a heart that can receive the commands of Allah? There are two things here. One thing that we have to make dua, constant dua. Rabbi shrah li sadri. Oh Allah, open up my heart for your commandments. Let me receive them. Let me welcome them. Make them easy on me. Don't make them hard on me. Right? First thing is dua. The second thing is sometimes, just like a house requires cleaning, the heart requires cleaning. And when there's too much rebellion by the jism and the ruh has been suffocating, the ruh is not getting any air, we need to clean the heart to let the air come to the ruh. Imagine if you did not clean your house or you did not clean your kitchen. SubhanAllah, I just noticed this, that for 2 days I actually did not mop my kitchen floor. And SubhanAllah, the dust particles or the food particles that fell on the floor, they were stuck on it now. Had I cleaned it right away, had I cleaned those crumbs right away, it would have been a much easier clean. But the fact that I let it sit for 2 days, because I was lazy, okay, what happened? It became a sticky gunk and goo on the floor. And then what did I have to do? I had to scrub it. And scrubbing didn't work. Then I had to spray it multiple times. Then a part of it came off. And then I had to take out my steamer and steam it. And then the gunk got removed. I'm sure all of you have had similar experiences. Heart is of the same way. It requires constant cleaning through istighfar, like a daily mop, daily vacuum. When you don't do daily istighfar, the gunk keeps coming on. When we don't return to Allah, when nafsul lawama is sleeping and you're not urged to do tawbah and go back to Allah, the heart becomes hard. When the heart becomes hard, then the commandments of Allah become hard. They become heavy. Even salah becomes heavy. The basic things become heavy. So the answer to that would be dua. May Allah open my heart to receive your commands. And second, istighfar, 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 istighfar. Istighfar is the ghusl of the heart. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, قَدْ أَفْلَحَ. Indeed, he succeeds. Man, who, zakah. Do you notice here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala use the word man? Because now he's not talking about himself. He's talking about a person. Indeed, the one who purifies himself, his soul, or he purifies his soul, has succeeded. Indeed, he has succeeded. Man, who has succeeded? Who? Zakkaha, purified it. It who? It purified it nafs. How do you purify your nafs? Before we get to that, I want to highlight the word qad. The qad in Arabic is used for two reasons. One is to illustrate a statement that is already established, meaning it's a fact that's already happening. So you just reiterate it, meaning saying, qad kharaja, he already left. Meaning, he's already successful. The person who's trying to purify their nafs, that person is already successful. And the second way the word qad is translated or understood in grammar is it's the same as inna, which means indeed. So indeed, he is successful. Who? Or he succeeds. Man who zakkaha, who is purifying his nafs. How do you do that? Now the word aflaha comes from the root letters fa, lam, and ha. There are multiple words in Arabic language for success. Multiple words. But this word comes from iflah. Iflah is a farmer that is about to reap his harvest. And a farmer, when they sow the seed, they don't know what kind of crop they're going to get, by the way, right? But the farmer every day still goes to its field, plow its field, waters it on a daily basis. On a daily basis, the farmer is tending to his farm. So somebody like a farmer is daily tending to the needs of the ruh, just like we deal with the needs of our jism. We eat at least 3 times a day, right? Just like someone who tends to the needs of the jism, if that person tends to the need of the ruh, like a falah, that person will be successful. Usually when aflaha, the word is mentioned, some kind of effort is mentioned alongside with it, because there is no success without any effort. The Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala here is saying, the way this ayah is phrased is that one who is engaged in purifying and cleansing himself, that person, through the action of purifying and cleansing, has already gotten success. Meaning, doesn't matter if you've reached nafsul mutmainna or not, but if you're in the stages of constantly trying and striving, you are this striving is success. Okay, this cleansing is success. Zakaha from taskiya, zakah, it's an act of purifying and cleansing. What do we clean? Something that is dirty. So ask yourselves, I clean my home. Do I clean my heart? Do I clean my soul? I want to make sure that my jism, my body, sits on a clean bed sheet. If you go to someone's house and you know there is najis somewhere, there's impurity somewhere, will you sit there? No, because you don't want to put your body through that. So why do we keep putting our ruh through the pain of sins? When we recognize that we need cleansing and we start the process, we start the journey of tawbah to get to nafsul mutma'inna, whether we get to reach there or not, we will achieve success in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now the question to myself and to you and to all of us is this: what do we need cleansing from? We need to cleanse ourselves from anger, jealousy, lying, cheating, shamelessness, laziness, wandering eyes, sharp tongue, evil speech, evil desire. I mean, there's tons of things we need cleansing of. Look at yourself. Do you truly think that your soul is purified? No, if it's not, we need to work on it. Think of the attributes that you want to remove from yourself. I mean, this is a task I'm going to give myself for this week, that I'm going to make a list of things that I don't like in myself. Or, well, usually we like ourselves a lot. Ask the people who live around us that, what do you not like about me? They will give you a huge list. And I dare you to ask your husbands, because mashallah, they will have 100+ things. But it's a good activity. I mean, I don't want to put you down and ask them, but think for yourself. What is an attribute in me that needs to be purified? Am I lazy in my salah? Am I lazy in my prayer? Am I lazy in my Quran? Does my heart not settle? Do I not want to learn the deen? Do I gossip a lot? Where do I spend most of my time? Do your own tazkiyah, a catharsis for your own self. And subhanAllah, from a hadith that we know that whenever this ayah, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, whenever he would recite this ayah, قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا, he would make a dua. And inshallah, I will share this dua with you later in WhatsApp group. And the dua he would say would, Allahumma ati nafsi taqwaha wa zakkaha. Oh Allah, grant my nafs its protection. Grant my nafs its taqwa. And protect itself and purify my soul. Wa zakkaha, oh Ya Rabbi, protect it and purify it, cleanse it. Wa qad khaba. And certainly, and indeed, and surely he has already failed. Khaba, he's already failed. Who has already failed? Man, who? Dassaha, corrupts it. Meaning corrupts the nafs. Now the words, these two words are very important to understand. Again, translations do no justice to these words. SubhanAllah. Like, oh, I feel people who don't read the linguistics of the Quran, wallahi, I feel pain in my heart because just reading this translation, you will never get the beauty of the Quran. Okay? Like, I read this translation, what does it mean? Indeed, he failed to corrupt it. What does it mean? So let's look at the words here. Khaba. Khaba in Arabic means when you run after something and you fail to get it. Okay, meaning you're struggling to get something, but you can't get it. You don't get it. And it also means when you desperately want something and you finally get it. You get it. You got it. But when you get it, you are disappointed with it because it's not what you thought it would be, so you feel like a failure. How can you translate this beautiful explanation of the word khaba by just saying he fails? There's so much emotion and experience in this just one word. Subhanallah al-Azim. So the word khaba is a failure with disappointment and with frustration. And one example I could give you is that of two examples. Kids want gifts for their birthday or for Eid, right? All year he's like, oh, I really want this, I really want this, I really want this, I really want this, right? Finally, the parents cave in and give it to him. And then what happens after 2-3 days? The toy is thrown outside, or he's not caring for that toy because, he's like, man, it's not really what I thought it would be. The charm has lost, right? And the second example would be of love marriages, right? Your heart is yearning for that man, and your heart is yearning, let's say, for that woman. And you're like, I cannot live without him. I cannot live without, I just need to be with that person. And what happens generally when they get together and the reality of married life and the reality of things come into play, it's the disappointment. They're like, oh man, it's not really what I thought it would be, right? I mean, I'm just giving these examples to help you understand this word. So what is khaba? Is that when you desperately want something and finally acquire it, you find it was not what you really wanted. So it's a failure with disappointment and frustration. And that is the case of desires. Because if you're not cleansing the soul, if you're not cleansing the nafs, then you're running after the desire to fulfill the jism. And every time you acquire a desire, every time you acquire one of your wants, now it's sitting in your closet, sitting in the bank, sitting somewhere else. Now you need something more after that. Never satiated and always feeling behind, always feeling like a failure with it. Man who dassaha, it corrupts it. Dassa, this word dassa, it means to disregard something. So the root letters are dal, sin, and sin. There's takrar, there's repetition of the letter sin. In Arabic language, when there's takrar of this, it gives the word more exaggeration in meaning. So we cannot just say to disregard something. The translation, the true meaning of that word would be the one who completely disregards his nafs by not listening to his inner voice. And in doing so, he sets himself up for disappointment and failure. Meaning your inner clock is clicking that you should not be doing the sin, keeps ignoring it, keeps disregarding. Through disregarding the nafs, through disregarding the gut feeling of nafsul lawama, now you have corrupted the nafs. Okay, you've lost control of your nafs. وَقَدْ خَابَ مَنْ دَسَّاهَا. When you look at the ayat from ayah number 1 to 10, let's do a quick overview of it. I know I've gone over time, but And we will not be able to finish the surah today, but these all ayats were connected and I could not just leave them in the middle. There's a parallel drawn here between the creation of Allah and our nafs. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given the nafs bright ability to cleanse itself. But the nafs can still come to a point where it becomes covered with darkness of sins, just like the day ends and the night begins. And even in the night, the sun still benefits the moon by giving light to the qamar. Similarly, a clean, purified nafs, the one that does tazkiyah, that person does not just benefit itself, but others as well by sharing its light. So you could be the shams for many qamar. So even in our darkest times, the toughest times of fitna, we always say the times of fitna are too severe. There's too much temptation in today's world, which is true. You will still benefit from a clean nafs because it will be like the bright moon that shines in the darkness. Just like how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows the brightness of the sun to return every day. Every day a new day begins. And every day it overcomes the darkness. So just like that, our nafs can repent, can do tawbah, and come backwards and start fresh again. This is the parallel that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is bringing our attention to by mentioning all of these oaths in the beginning. It is all about the trial of the nafs, the conflict of the nafs, the battle between good and bad that we all fight on a daily basis. Let's listen to the recitation of these verses, inshallah, and then we will do a quick discussion afterwards. When the recitation is being played, please look at the verses. Focus on, on the beauty of these words, inshallah ta'ala. Okay?
ولا يخاف عقباها بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والشمس وضحاها والقمر إذا تلاها والنهار إذا جلاها والليل إذا يغشاها والسماء وما بناها والأرض وما طحاها ونفس وما سواها فألهمها فجورها وتقواها قد أفلح من زكاها وقد خاب من دساها
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. So what did we learn today? Inshallah, you can raise your hand and I will unmute you if you want to add something or if you want to type something out. There was just so many points in this surah to talk about, to learn about, and I know we went a little over our time, but I still feel like I've not done justice to this surah. Any point of reflection? Anybody wants to say something? Inshallah, they can raise their hand. You guys are so quiet. So we did not learn anything. I'm going to assume that we did not learn anything. Okay.
Assalamu
Yeah.
alaikum.
Walaikum assalam.
Okay, so I think the main message that I for me was the constant battle of good and bad of our nafs. And then what I learned today was the three different kind of nafs there are: nafsul amara, nafsul nawama, and then nafsul mutmainna. So the 7 oaths that Allah swears by, and yeah, and like I said, the main message was how Allah has made all these things and made them function in harmony and with balance. But it's the nafs that we have. There's good and bad, and what we can do and to make sure that we get to our nafsul mutmainna.
Good. Excellent. MashaAllah. Jazakallah khairan kaseera. MashaAllah.
Assalamu alaikum. I just learned from here, from the surah, that it's a constant battle with our nafs. We need to clean it every single day. And surely he would be successful who purifies.
Inshallah. Jazakallah khairan kaseera. Yes, Mehek, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam.
Alhamdulillah, what I have learned, if you see from the start of the surah, one thing was very astonishing, which I learned myself, that just like in this universe, which is like even bigger than what human creation looks like, according to the surah, if in this universe two opposite things with the two opposite direction or dimension can live in a harmony by following the rules of Allah, by obeying the commands of Allah. So why can't we? We have like, I know we have a 3 dimension. We have a heart, mind, and soul. We have a physical body and desire, bodily desires to deal with. But Alhamdulillah, we can still obey the Allah and the Quran and His commandment, and through which we can acquire this Nafsul Mutmainna. Inshallah, just only thing we
Inshallah.
have to constantly battle, constantly we have to uh, just focus on what Allah says in every walk of life. Inshallah, that's what I have learned today. Alhamdulillah. Jazakallah.
Alhamdulillah, mashallah. It reminds me of this constant struggle. In last surah, we did فَإِذَا فَرَغْتَ فَانْصَبْ. And when you are free, what should you do? Work hard. And subhanAllah, it kind of relates to the message in today's surah as well, that there's going to be this struggle will never end. You can never say that I have full iman now. Okay, the stairs of iman will keep going on and on and on, and nobody can ever say that alhamdulillah I'm on guidance and I'm perfect. No, there's always, every day is going to be a new struggle for us, and every day we have to charge our batteries or charge our soul. We have to feed our soul on a daily basis to gain the strength to make the opposing jism and ruh part of the nafs, and to make them into balance and make them work in harmony in obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, just like the rest of the creation does. And that can only happen through the daily struggle, inshallah ta'ala. Jazakumullah khairan kaseera. Okay. All righty. All right, I think that's about it, inshallah wa ta'ala. So let's go into our word-to-word meanings, in which we'll decode the ayat, so you guys, it will help you with the translation, inshallah wa ta'ala. All right. Somebody wrote, Saida, because we're living in the time of fitna. The time of fitna has always existed. There will always be fitna. That's the thing. There will never come a time when there will be no fitna. We are put in this world to be tried, and fitna is a trial. And every nation, every age, every time will have a different kind of fitna. Okay. Yes, day by day it's getting worse, and this is one of the prophecies of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that near the end of times the the temptations and these things will continue to increase. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us steadfast and make us and grant us a strong enough control on our ruh that we can fulfill our obligations, inshallah wa ta'ala, and maintain a balance between where we're supposed to maintain a balance, inshallah. Okay, so let's go to word. I'm going to share that screen. Jazakumullah khairan kasira. I loved hearing your feedbacks and your thoughts. Inshallah, I'm hoping that we will be more engaging in the classes. Okay. All righty. I'm going to annotate and then we'll do the word-to-word translation. Okay. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Wa, we know means, is the wa of qasam. So by the sun. Wa and by. So both meanings are here, and by its brightness. Ha is the pronoun that's referring to the shams, its brightness. Wa and by, both meanings, and by the moon. Either when talaha, it follows it. This tala means it follows. Ha follows who? The sun. Okay. Wa and by an-nahari, the day. Either when jallaha, jalla, it shows up, it makes clear, right? It exposes. Remember the word tajalla we talked about? It, okay, the shams. Meaning when the day exposes the shams, and the shams is in full brightness and its full brilliance. Okay. Wa, by and by al-layli, the night. Iza, when yaghsha, means it conceals. It conceals what? What does the night conceal? Ha, it conceals the day. The night conceals the day. So this ha is referring to an-nahar. Was-sama'i, and by the heaven. Wa, and what. So you can translate it as what, which is the majority understanding through the grammatical in-text. Most people in translation, you see, who again we lose the beauty of this phrase. We lose the beauty by using subhanallah, I don't know what to say. And wama banaha, bana, he built it, he built ha, it. This ha is referring to what? As-sama. This ha is, he built the sky. Okay. I'm going to grab a different pen. Wal-ardi, and by the earth. Wama, and what? Tahaha. Taha, he spread. Ha, it, earth. And he spread it. And ha, and what spread it? What power spread the earth? How the earth, he spread the earth. Wa, and nafsin, soul. Something interesting. Ash-shamsu, al-qamara, an-nahara, al-layli, as-samai, al-ardi, all are ism ma'rifa, right? But when it comes to here, it's not an-nafsi or one nafsi, it's nafsin. Indefinite article has been used, as if all of these are merging into this. It has been made this way, so we pay attention to it. Oh, why is this not ism ma'rifa? Because in a way, this qasam is an explanation or bringing our attention to nafsin. Wama, and what? Sawaha, perfected it in proportion. Sawa means from taswiya, we talked about it. Sin waw ya is the root to perfect something that was uneven before, and ha refers to the nafs. That he perfected the nafs, meaning we feel like that it's an imbalance, but it's not an imbalance. The element of good and bad has equally been added. The recognition of good and bad has equally been added. It's perfectly balanced. Now our job is to maintain the balance between the two. Okay. Fa, as you guys already know, it means then. We've covered it many times. Alhama, he inspired. He inspired who? What? Ha, it, the nafs. He inspired the nafs. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then, after making the nafs in perfection and its perfect balance, what did he do? He inspired it. He didn't just leave it by itself. He gave it guidance of what? Fujuraha, its ability to do fujur, its rebellion, its desire for rebellion. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it recognize what? Wa and taqwa, purity. Whose purity? Nafs's purity, its purity. Okay. Qad, indeed. Or I also said there are two meanings that you can say already has happened, or indeed. So both are correct. So we can say indeed he has already succeeded. Aflaha, he succeeded. Who? Man, who? Zakkaha. Zakka from tazkiyah, he purifies, meaning this person who purifies. What does he purifies? It. What is ha referring to? Nafs. Wa and qad, indeed, khaba, he has failed. He's already failed and is disappointed, right? With frustration, all of that. Who? Man who? Dassaha. He disregards it. And through disregarding of the clock that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed in it, he corrupts it. So this is dual meaning here. He corrupts it, meaning he corrupts his nafs by constantly following the desires and failing in achieving of those desires. And subhanallah, this dunya, no matter how much of this dunya we will have, it will just never be enough. It will just never be enough. And we see that the richer we get, we want more and more and more. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us qina'ah of the heart. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us a nafs that's mutma'in, that is satiated, that is calm, that is pleased with the decree of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We ask for a nafs that is obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We ask for a nafs that doesn't stray away. Ya Rabbi, protect our nafs from its fujur. Ya Rabbi, grant our nafs its taqwa. Allahumma ati nafsi taqwaha wa dhakkaha. Ya Rabbi, the way you have perfectly balanced the opposite creations of the world, give harmony in me. Make me content. Give harmony between my opposites within my nafs. Put them in balance. Ya Rabbi, the battle of good and bad, I always end up losing. Strengthen my nafsul lawama, strengthen my nafsul mutma'inna, so I may overpower my nafsul ammara. Ya Rabbi, accept our du'as. Allahumma ameen. Jazakumullahu khairan kathira. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept your time and efforts that you have spent, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bring khair out of this class. And if there is something that I have said that is incorrect, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala correct it for us and guide us to the right path. If any shar came from it, it came from my nafs. If any khair came from this class, it came from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept it from us. Jazakumullahu khairan kathira. Subhanakallahumma bihamdika nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Jazakumullahu khairan kathira. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We will end here. Inshallah, there's not enough time to do grammar today. Inshallah, that would be done for next week. Okay? Jazakumullah.